Candidate is throwing their hat into the Hannibal mayor's race. You'll remember former mayor Jim Hart resigned in June. Now Barry Louderman is announcing his candidacy for the vacant office. Louderman formerly served as a 4th Ward councilman in Hannibal from 2008 until 2016 and sits as the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee. Louderman says he's running because he wants to help guide the city's council and residents.
We need to have more jobs. We need to have better paying jobs. We need an economic development board to help bring those jobs to Hannibal, and that's what I'm going to concentrate on. One of my other goals is a lot of the dilapidated buildings, houses. I chose to announce my run in front of Old St. Elizabeth Hospital because that kind of represents the problem that Hannibal has with those.
And Louderman says if elected, he also wants to focus on the expansion of the runway at Hannibal Regional Airport and working to get Amtrak to add a Hannibal stop again. Louderman follows resident Christy Trefethen's announcement of her run for mayor. A special election will be held November 7th.